What's up, football fans? Welcome back to Sideline Signal. I am Tyler Dorr. Today, we are diving into one of the most debated topics in college football, and that is ranking all 11 college football playoff champions from the early days of the playoff with four teams to the most recent title holders, of course, being Ohio State this year in the first year of the 12 team. But which team had the most dominant run? Which championship squad had the best overall season? We're about to break it all down and rank them from top to bottom. So grab your popcorn and let's get into it. Ohio State won the first inaugural 14 playoff in 2014, followed by Alabama in 2015, then Clemson in 2016, Alabama again in 2017, Clemson again in 2018. In 2019, it was the LSU Tigers taking home the title. In the 2020 COVID season, it was the Alabama Crimson Tide making their way back for the third CFP title. And then 21 and 22 were both ruled by the Dogs. Georgia went back to back, Michigan following up the next year in 2023. And then, of course, the Ohio State Buckeyes at the conclusion of this season, knocking off Notre Dame. All great teams, all had different paths to the same place and being crowned champion. So let's see how they stack up. Rounding out our list and coming in at number 11, it's the 2014 Ohio State Buckeyes, a team that, on paper, and wasn't expected to win it all, but proved everyone wrong with the legendary postseason run. Let's set the stage. The Buckeyes started the season with high hopes, but they quickly faced adversity. Star quarterback Braxton Miller was lost to a season ending injury before the year even kicked off. That's when Cardell Jones, yes, the third string quarterback, was called into action after backup JT Barrett went down with an injury of his own during the regular season. Talk about a next man up mentality. Despite the chaos at quarterback, Ohio State never wavered. Head coach Urban Meyer kept the team focused, and they ended the regular season with an 11-1 record, securing a spot in the inaugural college football playoff. Their only loss? A surprising upset to Virginia Tech early in the season, but they didn't let that deter them. In the Big Ten championship, the Buckeyes took down Wisconsin 59 to nothing, a statement win that really made the committee sit up and take notice. But the real magic happened in the playoff. Ohio State was ranked fourth, and they didn't just play like underdogs, they dominated. In the semifinals, they faced Alabama, the defending champs and the number one seed. Cardell Jones looked like a seasoned vet, throwing for 243 yards and a pair of touchdowns in a 42-35 victory that stunned the college football world. And then came the national championship game against Oregon. The Buckeyes offense, led by Ezekiel Elliott's 246 rushing yards and four touchdowns, put on an absolute clinic. They took down the Ducks 42-20, and just like that, Ohio State, despite all the odds, were national champions. It was gritty, resilient, and downright impressive as a season. Ohio State proved that no matter how many setbacks a team faces, determination and talent can carry you all the way to the top. They may have been the fourth seed, but they went on to make history in the first ever college football playoff. Coming in at number 10 on the list, it's the 2016 Clemson Tigers, a team that proved they were more than just a one hit wonder after their 2015 national title appearance. This season, Clemson came in with big expectations, and boy, did they deliver. Led by head coach Dabo Sweeney and Heisman worthy quarterback Deshaun Watson, the Tigers boasted one of the most explosive offenses in the country and one of the most dynamic defenses in college football. The Clemson had a near perfect regular season, finishing with an 11-1 record. Their only loss came in a dramatic 43-42 shootout against Pittsburgh, a team led by Nathan Peterman, in a game that seemed to throw them off the course for the moment. But the Tigers bounced back, crushing every opponent in their path for the rest of the regular season, including a 56-7 rout of South Carolina in their rivalry game. In the ACC title, Clemson got their revenge on a team that nearly derailed their playoff hopes, Virginia Tech. They came out swinging, dominating the Hokies 42-35 to secure a spot in the college football playoff. With that, they earned the number 2 seed and a date with Ohio State in the semifinals. And that's where things got interesting. Ohio State was a huge favorite, but Clemson shocked the world with a stunning 31-0 win. I mean, a complete beatdown. Clemson's defense shut down the Buckeyes in every way possible. Sean Watson was brilliant, throwing for 259 yards and two touchdowns, while the defense, led by playmakers like Christian Wilkins and Ben Boulware, kept Ohio State completely out of sync. Then came the championship game against Alabama. And if you were a fan of college football, you knew this was going to be an instant classic. After falling to Alabama in the 2015 title game, Clemson was hungry for redemption. And in one of the most dramatic finishes in college football history, Deshaun Watson led a game winning drive in the final seconds, hitting Hunter Renfrow for a 2-yard touchdown with just a second left on the clock, securing a 35-31 victory. Clemson's 2016 season was a true test of resilience, talent, and clutch performance. They went from contenders to champions, knocking off the defending champs in the process and cementing their place in college football history. Coming in at the number 9 spot, it's the 2017 Alabama Crimson Tide. Another powerhouse under Nick Saban, but this season they had to overcome a bit more adversity than usual. Alabama entered the season as one of the clear favorites, boasting a dominant defense loaded with future NFL stars like Mika Fitzpatrick, Deron Payne, and Rashaan Evans. Offensively, sophomore quarterback Jalen Hurts showed he was ready to lead the Tide, and with a stable of talented running backs, Alabama looked poised for another championship run. They cruised through the most of their schedule, but their regular season wasn't without drama. The Tide suffered their only loss of the season in the Iron Bowl against Auburn, falling 26-14 in a game that knocked them out of the SEC championship picture. Despite that loss, Alabama still earned a spot in the college football playoff, coming in as the number 4 seed. In the playoff semifinals, Alabama faced off against number 1 seed Clemson, a rematch of the 2016 national championship. This time, Alabama came out on top, dominating Clemson 24-6. The Tide's defense was suffocating, holding the Tigers to just 188 yards of total offense, while Jalen Hurts played a solid, mistake-free game to help Alabama advance to the title game. The national championship game, though, was where Alabama's season really went into overdrive. In a thrilling matchup with Georgia, Alabama found themselves down 13-0 at the halftime. But Nick Saban wasn't about to let this one slip away. He made the bold decision to bench Jalen Hurts and put in freshman quarterback Tua Tagovailoa, and the rest was history. The decision paid off in a big way. Tua led the Tide to a stunning 26-23 overtime victory, throwing a game-winning 41-yard touchdown pass to the then freshman Devonta Smith, one of the most iconic moments in college football history. Despite that loss to Auburn, the 2017 Alabama squad showed just how resilient they were. They fought through adversity, relied on their defense when needed, and capped off the season with yet another national championship under Nick Saban. Truly an amazing story. Coming in at number 8, it's the 2015 Alabama Crimson Tide, a team that reminded everyone why they were the gold standard of college football under Nick Saban. The squad was stacked, with a suffocating defense, a dominant running game, and a punishing offensive line that ran over opponents all season long. Led by Heisman winning running back Derrick Henry, Alabama rolled through the regular season with a 12-1 record. Henry was an absolute force, rushing for over 2,200 yards and 28 touchdowns, and he was the centerpiece of Alabama's offense. But it wasn't just Henry. Quarterback Jake Coker had his moments, managing the offense efficiently, while Alabama's defense, led by players like Reggie Ragland and A'Shawn Robinson, was as dominant as ever. Their only loss came earlier in the season, a shocking 43-37 defeat at the hands of Ole Miss. After that, however, the Tide went on a 10-game win streak, including a dominant stretch of SEC victories. They smashed rivals like LSU and Auburn with a particularly memorable 30-16 win over LSU in Baton Rouge, where Henry ran for 210 yards and 3 touchdowns. By the time the SEC championship rolled around, Alabama had firmly established themselves as the top team in the country. In the SEC title game, they faced off against Florida, and it was a statement win. Alabama dominated the Gators 29-15, with Derrick Henry running for over 180 yards and 3 touchdowns, cementing his Heisman credentials and locking up a spot in the college football playoff as the number 2 seed. In the semifinals, Alabama took on Michigan State, and it was all business. The Tide hammered the Spartans 38-0, with Derrick Henry adding another 2 touchdowns and proving to everyone that they were the team to beat. Then, in the national championship, Alabama faced off against the high-powered offense of Clemson. It was a thrilling back-and-forth battle, but Alabama's defense stepped up when it mattered most. Henry capped off his historic season with 158 yards and 3 touchdowns, and Alabama held off Clemson for a 45-40 win, securing Nick Saban's fourth national title with the Tide. The 2015 Alabama team was a classic example of Saban football: powerful, physical, and relentless. With one of the most dominant players in college football history in Derrick Henry and a defense that could shut down anyone, this team showed why Alabama was back on top. Rounding out our Alabama championship teams, the 2020 Crimson Tide football team delivered one of the most dominant and efficient seasons in college football history, even amid the challenges of the COVID-19 pandemic. This team went a perfect 13-0, blending an explosive offense, a stout defense, and remarkable discipline. Alabama's offense, coordinated by Steve Sarkisian, was unstoppable. Quarterback Mac Jones was laser accurate, throwing for 4,500 yards and 41 touchdowns, earning consensus All-American honors. His primary weapons included receiver Devonta Smith, who had a historic season and became the first wide receiver to win the Heisman Trophy since 1991. Smith recorded 117 receptions for 1,856 yards and 23 touchdowns, consistently torching defenses. Running back Najee Harris added balance with 1,466 rushing yards, 43 total touchdowns, and dazzling versatility. The Crimson Tide soared through an all SEC regular season schedule, including a 41-24 dismantling of Georgia, a 63-48 shootout victory over Ole Miss, and a 55-17 rout of LSU. Alabama claimed the SEC championship by defeating Florida 52-46 in a high-scoring thriller, solidifying their spot in the college football playoff. In the CFP semifinal, Alabama dominated Notre Dame 31-14, with Smith and Harris leading the charge. The national championship game was a masterpiece as the Tide overwhelmed Ohio State 52-24. Smith delivered an iconic performance with 215 receiving yards and 3 touchdowns, all in the first half, before exiting with an injury. Harris added 3 more touchdowns, while the defense, led by Patrick Surtain II and Christian Barmore, stifled Ohio State's offense. The 2020 Alabama team was an offensive juggernaut, averaging 48.5 points per game and rewriting the record books. This squad is remembered for its unparalleled efficiency, star power, and ability to dominate during a challenging season, cementing its place as one of the great teams in college football history. Making their second appearance on this list, the Clemson Tigers have taken the 6th spot with their 2018 championship team. They delivered a perfect 15-0 season, becoming the first team in the college football playoff era to achieve that feat. This team was defined by its elite talent, balance on both sides of the ball, and a stunning finish to the season. Clemson's year began with a quarterback controversy as veteran Kelly Bryant started the first 4 games, but true freshman Trevor Lawrence soon took over. Lawrence's poise and deep ball accuracy transformed the Tigers' offense, and he became the centerpiece of their explosive attack. The team's offense, led by Lawrence, running back Travis Etienne, and a dynamic receiving core that included T. Higgins and Justin Ross, averaged over 44 points per game. On defense, Clemson was equally dominant, boasting one of the most talented defensive lines in college football history. Christian Wilkins, Clelin Ferrell, Dexter Lawrence, and Austin Bryant spearheaded a unit that suffocated opponents, allowing just 13.1 points per game. Linebacker Isaiah Simmons and quarterback Trayvon Mullen added further playmaking ability. Clemson steamrolled through the regular season, including key wins over Texas A&M, Syracuse, and a 56-35 victory against South Carolina. The Tigers secured their 4th straight ACC championship with a 42-10 rout of Pitt, earning a spot in the college football playoff. In the semifinal, Clemson dismantled Notre Dame 30-3, with Justin Ross emerging as a star. The national championship game against Alabama was a historic performance. The Tigers dominated from start to finish, routing the Crimson Tide 44-16. Lawrence threw for 347 yards and 2 touchdowns, while Ross made a highlight reel of catches. Clemson's defense forced 2 interceptions and battled up Alabama's high-powered offense. The 2018 Clemson Tigers were a complete team, featuring a freshman quarterback who played like a seasoned veteran and a defense that could stifle anyone. Their historic 15-0 season culminated in one of the most lopsided title game victories ever, solidifying their place as one of college football's best and all-time teams. Rounding out our top five is one of two Georgia Bulldog national championship teams. This one being the 2022 team, which delivered a spectacular follow up to their 2021 national championship season, going a perfect 15-0 and becoming the first team in the college football playoff era to win back to back national titles. This team was defined by its physical dominance, resilience, and depth on both sides of the ball. Coming into the season, Georgia faced questions after losing a record 15 players to the NFL draft, including 5 first-round picks from their legendary 2021 defense. However, the Bulldogs reloaded rather than rebuilt, leaning on veteran quarterback Stetson Bennett and a balanced roster of young and experienced talent. Georgia's offense, coordinated by Todd Monken, was efficient and versatile. Bennett threw for over 4,000 yards and 27 touchdowns while adding mobility to the offense. Tight ends Brock Bowers and Darnell Washington were matchup nightmares, while the run game featuring Kenny McIntosh and Dejon Edwards provided power and consistency. The offensive line dominated in the trenches, protecting Bennett and paving the way for an average of 41 points per game. Defensively, Georgia remained elite. Players like Jalen Carter, Christopher Smith, and Kelly Ringo anchored a unit that ranked among the nation's best, allowing just 14.3 points per game. While the defense wasn't as statistically dominant in 2021, it consistently rose to the occasion in critical moments. Georgia's season was highlighted by dominant victories, including a 48-3 statement win over Oregon in the opener, a 27-13 victory over Tennessee to claim the SEC East, and a 50-30 blowout of LSU in the SEC championship game. In the college football playoff, Georgia showed its resilience in a thrilling 42-41 comeback win over Ohio State in the Peach Bowl semifinal. In the national championship game, Georgia delivered one of the most dominant performances in college football history, demolishing TCU 65-7. Bennett accounted for 6 total touchdowns, and the Bulldogs overwhelmed TCU in every phase of the game. The 2022 Georgia Bulldogs combined championship pedigree, elite coaching, and sheer talent to cement their place in history as one of college football's greatest teams. Their undefeated season and back-to-back titles establishes them as the standard of modern college football excellence. Now that we've broken into the top five, the 2023 Michigan Wolverines have taken our fourth spot. Led by head coach Jim Harbaugh, they etched their name into college football history with a dominant season that showcased physicality, discipline, and an unrelenting will to win. Going a perfect 15-0, the Wolverines claimed their first college football playoff national championship, marking the pinnacle of Harbaugh's tenure in Ann Arbor. Michigan's identity was rooted in the trenches with arguably the nation's best offensive and defensive lines. The offensive line, led by All-American Zach Zinter, paved the way for a devastating run game featuring Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards. Corum returned from a 2022 injury with a vengeance, rushing for over 1,800 yards and 24 touchdowns, earning unanimous All-American honors. Quarterback J.J. McCarthy provided balance, throwing for over 3,000 yards with precision, complemented by clutch performances in key games. Defensively, Michigan was elite under coordinator Jesse Minter. The unit, anchored by players like Junior Colson, Will Johnson, and Kenneth Grant, allowed fewer than 12 points per game, consistently suffocating opposing offenses. They excelled at creating turnovers and dominating the line of scrimmage. The Wolverines' season was defined by consistency and big game success. They opened with dominant non-conference wins and cruised through the Big Ten, highlighted by a third consecutive victory over rival Ohio State, a 30-24 thriller in Ann Arbor. Michigan then handled Iowa 26-10 in the Big Ten title, securing their third straight conference title. In the college football playoff, Michigan faced Alabama in the semifinal, a matchup between two storied programs. The Wolverines leaned on their physicality and discipline to outlast the Crimson Tide in a hard-fought 27-21 overtime victory. Blake Corum's 2 rushing touchdowns and J.J. McCarthy's poise under pressure were crucial, while the defense held Alabama's explosive offense in check during the game's pivotal moments. In the national championship game, Michigan took on Washington, a high-powered team that had relied on its prolific passing attack all season. The Wolverines imposed their will with a balanced offensive attack and a suffocating defensive performance. McCarthy threw for 2 touchdowns. Corum added another pair on the ground, and the defense, led by Junior Colson and Will Johnson, held Washington's offense to its lowest output all season. Michigan controlled the game en route to a convincing 34-24 victory, securing its first national championship in the playoff era. The 2023 Michigan Wolverines combined power, poise, and precision to deliver a championship season that will be remembered as the culmination of years of steady growth under Jim Harbaugh. Their undefeated campaign redefined the program's legacy and reestablished Michigan as a powerhouse in college football. Michigan fans may not be happy about this one, but the proof is in the pudding. Coming in on our third spot is the 2024 Ohio State Buckeyes, who under head coach Ryan Day achieved a remarkable season culminating in their first national championship since the first year of the playoff in 2014. Despite facing challenges, including regular season losses to Oregon and Michigan, the Buckeyes demonstrated resilience and determination. Ohio State's offense was dynamic, led by quarterback Will Howard, a transfer from Kansas State. Howard's leadership and playmaking abilities were instrumental in key victories. The receiving core, featuring standout performances from freshman Jeremiah Smith and senior Emeka Buka, provided consistent production. Running backs Travion Henderson and Quinshawn Judkins offered a balanced rushing attack, contributing significantly to the team's offensive success. Defensively, the Buckeyes were made significant strides under coordinator Jim Knowles. The unit, anchored by players like JT Tuamaloa and Sonny Styles, improved throughout the season, making crucial stops in high pressure situations. After a challenging regular season, Ohio State entered the expanded 12-team college football playoff with renewed focus. They secured victories against formidable opponents including Tennessee, Oregon, and Texas, showcasing their growth and adaptability. In the national championship game, the Buckeyes faced Notre Dame and emerged victorious with a 34-23 win, securing their ninth national title and first since 2014. The 2024 Ohio State Buckeyes journey was marked by overcoming adversity, strategic adjustments, and peak performance in the postseason, solidifying their place in college football history and showing us a window into what the new era of NIL may look like. This one may come as a surprise to many of our viewers out there, but the 2019 LSU Tigers are going to come in second on this list, led by head coach Ed Orgeron, delivered one of the most electrifying and dominating seasons in college football history. Culminating in their first national championship since 2007, they went 15-0, and this team was defined by an explosive offense, a revamped defense, and a high level of execution in every phase of the game. At the heart of LSU's success was quarterback Joe Burrow, who delivered a record-breaking Heisman Trophy winning campaign. Burrow threw for an NCAA record 60 touchdown passes, over 5,600 yards, and finished the season with an absurd 202 passer rating. His connection with wide receivers Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson was unstoppable, as both receivers combined for over 3,000 yards and 40 touchdowns. Burrow's ability to spread the ball around and lead with poise turned LSU's offense into one of the most dynamic in college football history. LSU's offense was coordinated by Joe Brady, who introduced the high-octane spread offense that unleashed the Tigers' potential. Clyde Edwards-Helaire and a solid offensive line gave their offense balance, but it was the aerial attack that set LSU apart from the competition. On defense, LSU was opportunistic. While not as dominant as the offense, the defense made timely stops and created turnovers when needed. Players like Grant Delpit, Derek Singley Jr., and Caleb Von Chason were key playmakers in the secondary and front seven, anchoring a defense that allowed only 21.9 points per game. LSU's season included statement victories over Texas, Florida, Auburn, and a resounding 46-41 win over Alabama in Tuscaloosa, a win that solidified their position as the top team in the nation. In the SEC Championship, LSU routed Georgia 37-10, earning their spot in the college football playoff. In the CFP semifinal, LSU dominated Oklahoma 63-28, with Burrow tossing 7 touchdown passes. In the national championship game, the Tigers faced Clemson and outlasted them 42-25 in a thrilling battle. Burrow threw for 463 yards and 5 touchdowns, cementing his legacy as one of the greatest college football quarterbacks in history. Greatest, in my opinion. The 2019 LSU Tigers are remembered for their offensive juggernaut, innovative coaching, and flawless execution, setting a new standard for modern college football and securing their place as one of the greatest teams of all time. Securing the number one spot and being the greatest CFP champion is the 2021 Georgia Bulldogs. Led by Kirby Smart, they delivered one of the most complete and dominant seasons in college football history, culminating in their first national championship since 1980. Going 14-1, the Bulldogs were an absolute force on both sides of the ball, combining a historic defense with an offense that took significant strides throughout the season. Georgia's defense, arguably the greatest in college football history, was the backbone of their success. Coordinated by Dan Lanning, the defense allowed just 10.5 points per game and allowed their opponent to score less than 10 points in 8 of their 15 games. They dominated opponents with their speed, power, and depth. The defensive line, led by players like Jordan Davis, Trayvon Walker, and Jalen Carter, was relentless, consistently pressuring quarterbacks and shutting down opposing run games. Linebackers Nakobe Dean and Channing Tindall, along with defensive backs like Louis Cine and Darion Kendrick, made plays all over the field, creating turnovers and stifling offenses. On the offensive side of the ball, quarterback Stetson Bennett emerged as a steady leader, throwing for over 2,800 yards and 29 touchdowns. Running backs Zamir White and James Cook provided consistency on the ground with a physical rushing attack that was complemented by an improving passing game. Georgia's season included statement victories over Clemson 10-3, Arkansas 37-0, and Florida 34-7, In the SEC Championship, the Bulldogs faced Alabama and suffered a 41-24 loss. Despite this setback, Georgia secured a spot in the college football playoff. In the CFP semifinal, Georgia dominated Michigan 34-11 with the defense stifling Michigan's offense and the offense executing efficiently. In the national championship game, the Bulldogs faced Alabama one more time, trying to avenge their only loss on the year. This time, Georgia played nearly flawless football, with Bennett throwing for 2 touchdowns and the defense shutting down Alabama's explosive offense in a 33-18 victory, capped off by Keely Ringo's pick six in the final minutes of the game. The 2021 Georgia Bulldogs proved to be the ultimate combination of offensive improvement, defensive excellence, and championship pedigree, solidifying their place as one of the greatest teams in college football history. Georgia in 2021 becomes the greatest CFP champion and just edges out 2019 LSU for the top of the list. To check out how exactly we put together this list, stay tuned as I will explain the ruling. For those of you who stay tuned, welcome to the explanation of my rankings. Now, I'm a numbers nerd as well as an analytics nerd. So if you stayed, you truly must feel the same as me. So I based these teams, I gave them a rating, ranked them from 1 to however many teams based on their record, their strength of schedule, their point differential, the offensive efficiency, defensive efficiency, the record versus ranked teams, and then the teams that were drafted in the NFL the next year. So I felt that that really showcased which of these teams was great throughout. And obviously, that being 2021 Georgia was the only team to finish top 3 in every single category. And that's why they get the nod over a team like LSU who had 3 first place finishes, 2 seconds, and then a couple outside of the top 3, which couldn't get it done. I was surprised. It was pretty eye opening, the data. But all of these teams are so great. It's really splitting hairs between great teams, but it really makes you question, like, if we had the ability to put these teams all in a tournament, who would come out on top? And my guess for that would be 2021 Georgia. It's been a pleasure doing this video. Thank you guys for checking it out. Sideline Signal will upload weekly on YouTube and TikTok. Make sure to like, subscribe, and comment. We love to see the comments. Thank you guys so much for your time.